Christie reportedly losing ground when it comes to donors in the race for the White House. New York Times reporting that donors, policy advisors, and others, they're backing away from the governor and throwing their support behind rival candidates. And a new Q poll shows majority of New Jersey voters are actually throwing their support behind one Hillary Clinton. And Christie's negative ratings in most opinion polls are higher than the ones that look at him favorably. New Jersey's economy, it's struggling, and the state Senate president threatening to even override Christie's veto when it comes to the Port Authority reform. And this is happening over and over again, as many wonder whether the state's problems will present larger problems for this governor here, as he certainly seems to be touring the country in his presidential bid. All right, let's bring in our table here to sound off. Shelley Mayer, she is a Democratic New York State Assemblywoman representing the city of Yonkers in Albany, and as we like to say, one of the good ones. Dominic Carter, political journalist and author, and the usually very shy and reticent T.J. McCormick, Republican consultant here, and Andrew Whitman, senior political correspondent. And T.J., I'll start with you, my friend.
Thank you.
How much trouble is Christie as it relates? We've seen every poll here. New Jerseyans are saying, enough already. How about doing something in Trenton? But I was on that train. I got to tell you, some people close to him, advisors say, it's early. I'd rather somebody else be in the lead right now. Yeah. Is his biggest worry the money, folks, or is it public opinion?
I think his biggest Achilles here is his most tender Achilles is public opinion. I think while it's a while ago, I think Bridgegate is absolutely a legitimate concern. I think, and it's something I believe the Assemblywoman will echo, there is a personality issue. I don't think when they start playing those old tapes of him shouting at teachers, at ladies, and that's not going to play very well. Lord knows his opponent's going to play that up. I think it's public image. I think it's persona. You know, conservatives may like him barking at union people, but generally speaking, that's not going to play well. And Bridgegate, bad stuff.
And the timetable, the calendar, Andrew, it is only February now, more than a year and a half out. However, the Republicans are going to do their best so they don't repeat the same game plan as 4 years ago. They don't want the primary food fight. Do you think the big donors are going to try and push folks out earlier than last time?
Well, we already know that they're going to try to bring some order to the primary process because they don't want that food fight. The problem is, and I think you discount Chris Christie, at least in the Republican primary, at your own peril at this point. First of all of the angry clips are exactly the thing that brought him the celebrity and the fame in the first place. So I think there's more of an appetite for that than we might be willing to say. He's going to appeal to smaller donors, and I think he's going to be able to raise a lot of money from the less traditional sources. If I'm Christie right now, my game plan is to get to debate season, because if I can get on stage with the other Republican candidates, that's where I can shine. And I think he's going to find a receptive audience to the sort of style that he can bring to a debate, and it will be something of a palate cleanser. John Kasich is going to be on that stage, Jeb Bush, maybe George Patel. I mean, there's a lot of vanilla ice cream going on right now on that stage, and he could bring a little different flavor to it.
I know you're not buying it, Dom.
I'm going to try and be nice tonight. Governor Christie.
Why start now?
Yeah, no, we have to be objective about this. Governor Christie may have a long shot at best opportunity at the nomination. Richard, I told you on day one, you guys thought I would have something in my coffee. His personality is just not going to play, and we're starting to see that. That personality. First of all, if you're running in a primary against him, and if Christie says one bad thing about you, what are you going to do in terms of your commercials? I can almost do the voice for you. Bridgegate, he can't control his own state. So he has some huge obstacles to overcome. Perhaps he can overcome them.
I heard from some folks, they say, if anybody can beat Hillary in a general, this guy can stand toe-to-toe.
It's not. He can't even beat Hillary in his own state, based on polling. There's only one Republican out there that can beat Hillary Clinton. That's Jeb Bush.
You agree?
I really do agree about the personality. I think two things. One, this argument that I'm going for the smaller donors, there's this huge base. Honestly, I mean, I'm no expert on big fundraising, but there's not an unlimited base of people who can give you enough money to run for president. You have to start at the big givers. Secondly, I really think women are going to be turned off. The more they see this guy, the angry clips, the inability to control himself and act professionally and say, I disagree with you in a respectful way. I think women across the country, on the whole, there's obviously some who are going to find it appealing. He's not presidential material in tone.
You know, last night we played his address, which was what you'd expect here. It's to really a state audience, albeit in Washington. But he's never known for the humility. But there was a part in there. We played a clip. He goes, he's going to remove the mirrors because all the state assemblymen and all the state senators, they can't help but looking in the mirrors and seeing themselves as possibly governors. The guy's been out of state 24 out of 28 days, the last 28 days, campaigning around the country and around the world.
Wasn't he in London? Was he
Right, he was in London when the whole measles thing came out
We
here.
tried to forget
He
that he
sees
was in
himself
London.
as wannabe president here, but I don't know. I don't know. I was a little surprised. Is there a lack of awareness, self-awareness here we're talking about with this guy, or does he really think that he'll say whatever he's going to say? No one's going to cover the other parts of it.
Well, I think I would also hope that he pays a price for abdicating his responsibility as head of the Republican Governors Association. Yes, I'm still holding a grudge from this summer about this man not backing lost causes. So I think
Mr. Astor Reed.
I think he deserves. I think he deserves to have to own up to that. He did not act honorably as the head of that association this summer.
Look, I think he's a flawed presidential candidate. And I've been saying for some time, I don't think he can become president, and I don't think he's going to win the Republican nomination. But before we go throwing dirt on his grave for the 2016 aspirations, just keep in mind that, and I think the issues in New Jersey, the problems in New Jersey are a legitimate concern for him, because if he's having trouble with the state's economy, that's a major weight on his shoulders as he goes into the presidential campaign. But for all of the arguments that, well, his personality is not going to play, it's the thing that made him popular. It may be the thing that eventually
I was the
runs
only
out
guy
of
at this
gas.
table more than everybody who thought this guy was more viable. I thought everybody underestimated him at their own risk. But
it'll play to portions of
but
that base.
certainly the last few months is certainly, speaking to your point, Don, but come back to state issue, because I think a couple things that are playing out there are going to play out nationally. But one is every state's got this problem. It's not just New Jersey's. Pension liabilities. Now, a couple of years ago, I was there. Democrats, on the behalf of labor, really, made some concessions. And the agreement was, we'll give in on X, Y, and Z, but you got to pay into the fund. 2 years later, it hasn't paid into the fund. Now, the Scott Walkers of the rest, they'll claim this is the political recipe to get to the Republican nomination. Whatever word union shows up, you'll go against it. You'll win at the end of the day. How is this? I mean, even take New York as an example, which is more union-friendly, let's say, than across the state borders. Is there a reality that everybody acknowledges that the whole basic formulas have to change here? We can't keep doing what we're doing because they're unsustainable, or no?
Well, I think in New York this year, the pension contribution of municipalities went down because the comptroller has done a very good job investing the money and the market has gone up. So we can't buy into this narrative forever that the burden is unbelievably high and everyone has to give up, because this year it's going to be better for municipalities in terms of pension contributions. The other thing is Atlantic City. Honestly, I do lay this partially at his feet. Yes, the world collapsed in Atlantic City, but today he appointed two people a guy to run the school system. You have a disaster on your hand. You should not be out of the state of New Jersey, given the number of people that lost their jobs. There are very serious labor issues, and you can't just paint them with a broad anti-labor brush.
And by the way, we're hearing there could be more casinos that could be closing there. Every lawmaker I spoke to said...
It's going to be left.
Every lawmaker I said, unless they were down south, start putting casinos up in the northern part of the state here. And I said, what, won't that cannibalize AC? They said,
It's dead.
It's dead already, right?
And there's a resignation, and that's a huge consequence.
And Richard, and remember, there's still a U.S. attorney out there on Christie and his team, and if you don't think a indictment will play a role, ask Shelley Silver.
And finally, the Port Authority story, trust me, it's just beginning. There's going to be more that's going to come out of that. All right, when we come up next, we're going to do a little news and a little trivia here. Interesting subjects that came up this week here, plus you're a part of this. So toll-free lines open right now. See the number there on your screen here, 888-766-2428. You better get on now if you're not already. We'll ask you a question. You get it right? Yes. Breaking out the budget, you'll win a mug here. We'll also debate this, and thank you very much, Andrew. We'll be right back with your reaction and much more after this.